This meeting is being recorded.
Oh,
So,
fancy.
good morning. This is the Rice Creek Watershed District Board of Managers regular meeting for November 8th, 2023, 9 a.m. here at Shoreview. President Bradley is a little laryngitis this morning, so I've been victimized into running the meeting. So please, we'll continue here. All members are present. And there is an adjustment for the agenda. Mr. Administrator, what do you have to say?
Yes. Good morning, Board. We would like to rearrange the agenda a little bit. Basically, action items 5 and 4 move to the top. That's to help us facilitate the city-county partner meeting, so there isn't overlap for staff in preparation. The new agenda was handed out and redlined accordingly and is present for other folks. No other changes.
Thank you. Is there any managers have any changes to the agenda? Do I have a motion for the agenda?
So move as amended?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. 5-0. Next is the minutes of the meeting. Manager Robertson.
Mr. Chair, I would offer a motion in favor of approval of the minutes from the October 25th regular meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
5-0. That brings us to the permits. Mr. Administrator, does Patrick have some comments about this morning, or?
We're having some difficulties with Zoom and our audience isn't hearing, so Patrick's checking in with.
All right,
He
so
said he'll be right back.
we have three applications here?
Yes, it appears that we do have 3 applications. Mr. Chair, as we're waiting for Patrick to come on board, I'll just make note that John Kolb, I believe, is present when we get to our public drainage items. And I saw his name there previously. And then also when we do discuss the Minnesota watersheds, MOD.
Resolutions.
Yeah, we can maybe touch on the district's own open meeting law. So just a few thoughts here ahead of Patrick and the permits.
Sorry for the delay, but the folks that have attended virtually are not able to hear us currently, so I was just trying to communicate that there. I don't know if we're going to be able to get that to work at this time. So we are recording the meeting. It will still be available, but currently the folks that are attending Zoom cannot hear us.
Thank you, Patrick, but let's move on to the table of permits here.
Yes, 3 applications for consideration. No proposed changes from staff at this time.
Thank you. Any comments, Manager Wagaman?
I did have did you want the comment now on the permit? Is that, okay. On number 23-060, I would just like to bring up that I would like to discuss that later. I was gonna bring it up today, but after talking to the engineer and to Patrick, I may not understand it as well as I thought I did. And so the issue being that this water is all being sent to an area we're considering flooded and basically with no drainage. And I don't understand, quite frankly, exactly what we did there. I know we put in retention ponds and stuff, and I'd like to understand it better, but I would like to talk to somebody about it or have us talk about it for the future, because there's going to be several more of these come through, and I'd just like to discuss it.
All right.
At a future time.
At a future meeting, but
Yes.
Would you make the motion for the permits?
I would be happy to. I was going to vote no on that, and I'm going to change my vote until I understand it. I don't believe that there's an issue on this one, so Mr. President, I would move to Caprock permit number 23-060, 23-063, and, oh boy, I need my glasses, pardon me.
6-6.
23-066, all to Caprock.
Manager, Mr. President, is that a second?
No, I'm confused because I thought he was asking us to table 060.
He's asking us to have a discussion about the issue that, of which the outlet is for, I believe is what he's talking about.
Yep.
Not necessarily table it. He wants a better explanation
So
at a
you're-
future meeting.
If I may
Yes.
ask Manager Wagman, so you're okay with us approving the Caprock?
Yes, what I'm saying is, I thought I understood it, and I'm not quite sure I do, so I don't want to make an issue of it at this point.
Okay,
I would like to discuss it so I understand it better, because we're going to see a bunch more of these come through.
so Manager Bradley, you have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have a motion and a second. Do we have all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All three permits are Caprock, 5-0. This is time for the open mic. Is there someone here in the audience that's here for open mic? Or, no, it doesn't look like that. But how about on the electronic part of the meeting? Anybody here out in electronic land that wants to have a chat? Seeing, hearing none. We'll move on to items requiring board action. We have a new agenda here. Number one is the, Mr. Administrator.
Yes. Board of Managers, next, first item on the agenda is the Minnesota Watersheds resolutions for RCWD Rice Creek to define its delegates and its voting. Kendra is with us online, although I believe she may not be able to hear us. I'll note that these materials are on page 146 of your packet. And I would suggest maybe we start with the delegates and the alternatives. From our workshop, I understood those to be Manager Bradley as a delegate, Manager Wynant as a delegate, and then Manager Waller as an alternative. We could have that motion and then move into the actual voting itself. That would be my suggestion.
Mr. Chair?
Yes,
Vice
ma'am.
Chair? I would move to designate Manager Bradley and myself, Manager Wynant, and Manager Waller as the delegates, and Manager Waller as the alternate
Alternate. Yep.
to the 2023 Minnesota Watershed meeting.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that passes 5-0. Mr. Administrator.
Yes, Board of Managers, moving on from there, on page 150 of your,
Did you want a second motion instructing us how to vote?
yes, that is the matter at hand.
Okay, go ahead.
Yep, thank you. Board of Managers, on page 150, you will see the annual business meeting agenda. Multiple items there requiring action. We've just identified the delegates and alternative that will vote on those items. You did have discussion regarding what the voting may be, and we need to cover that now. My recollection of the specific list of the resolutions, which is found on, a good list is found on page 164 of your packet.
Yes.
This is the resolution with the recommendations that came from the resolution committee. So with that, I will read through what I understood to be the board's position from its workshop. Number one, require watershed district permits for the Department of Natural Resources. That was a yes or a recommended approval or support. Number two, clarify budget adoption deadlines and certification types for watershed districts. That was a no, don't support. Number three, support new legislation modeled after House File 2687 and Senate File 19 from 2018 regarding DNR regulatory authority over public drainage maintenance and repairs. That is Rice Creek's resolution. That was a yes. You did modify that with slight modification. Number 4, support streamlining the DNR flood hazard mitigation grant program. That was a yes, support from the district. Number 5, support increased flexibility in open meeting law to utilize interactive technology. That was a yes as well. We did note that we thought it was perhaps problematic or doomed, if you will, but we would support the idea. And then number 6, support Minnesota Watershed's education and outreach to encourage formation of watershed district in unserved areas. That would be a yes. Why don't I leave it there, and then we can go back and kind of discuss Rice Creek's open meeting law.
Mr. Vice
Mr.
Chair?
President. Oh, sorry.
Mr. Attorney, good morning.
Good morning. If I could offer a comment on item number 1, not being a part of your earlier discussion, I think there's certainly broad interest and support for having the Department of Natural Resources get watershed district permits. But the caution I would offer is that our view is that all state agencies must get permits from watershed districts. And in fact, we were involved some 20 years ago in amending the statute to be explicit that the Department of Transportation needed to get a watershed district permit when they were taking a position as an agency that they did not need to. So my concern is with the legislation as drafted, if you're simply inserting and adding the Department of Natural Resources, you're suddenly creating the possible interpretation that only those 2 agencies need to get watershed district permits, which I think would be a step backwards. And in fact, I think district practice now is that all state agencies that come forward work with the district and get permits. So I would recommend supporting resolution number 1, but with a change to make it clear that it should be all state agencies and not just the Department of Natural Resources.
Mr. Attorney, do you have some language?
Yes. Let me pull it up. It would simply be that rather than inserting Department of Natural Resources, it's all state agencies.
Mr. President, you seem to have a comment?
Well, I'm just reminding myself of last year's experience where I tried to amend one of these things on the fly, and they told me they would not accept amendments. So we may run into that problem.
So, Mr. Attorney, I'm going to ask you, does the resolution subcommittee still meet prior to the floor convention?
Mr. President, Board, for sure the board meets and reviews the resolutions. And so comments like these, I think, are still timely to the board before the association meeting.
So as I recall, there used to be a separate resolutions committee, which is a subcommittee of the executive committee, and it had a meeting at some ungodly time, like 6 a.m. in the morning or 7 o'clock, where only foolish people like me would go to it, and you could make changes at that time. And I'm asking, is that process still in effect? Something similar to it.
Mr. Chair, I believe so, but I can confirm.
Well, the reason I say that is that's probably the time to do that before you get on the floor and have them tell you you're out of order, or you're not going to do it. That would be appropriate to me if we were going to do that. As the delegates would have to take the initiative. I don't have any problem with you taking the initiative on it. I mean, or adding the language. I'm just trying to spell out the process clarity.
Yep.
All right. Is there anything else that we have? Do we have a motion for these resolutions, one or all, and then any discussion after that?
Mr. President, I move that we follow the discussion we just had. Yes on 1, no on 2, yes on all the others.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Manager Wagman.
I just had one question for Lewis. I thought that we had taken the position that we did not need a permit from the DNR.
No, this is DNR needs a permit from us.
Correct, the other way
Yeah,
around.
yeah, I'm sorry. I'm backwards. Yeah, I apologize.
Okay, any more discussion? Mr. Administrator?
Yes, just to make note, certainly Manager Bradley or the other delegates should speak to all the entire state on number one, but then also for the district's item. I think you brought it up at the workshop, Mike, and I'd be happy to have you speak to it and represent the district on that.
So last year, we had an issue which was we were supporting, and Nick got up and did an excellent job. And in the past, I've done that, and I thought it came really well from Nick, so I'm supportive of that continuation.
Oh, thank you.
Solve
It
that
bounced.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Thank you, maybe.
That'll be fine.
So
Thank you.
the only other thing I'd make a comment about is that it probably wouldn't hurt to have, as members, if you would, just for us, copies of our old legislation so we can refresh ourselves as to what the language actually is, you know. I mean, I haven't
Yeah,
seen it
but-
for a while, so.
It's in the packet.
It's in the.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
take it. All right.
Yep.
All in favor then? We'll call for the vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All
I
right.
I would also, Mr. Chair, we want to bring this along with us to the meeting because I don't think they're distributing any paper copies. So we have,
Well, that's what I was trying to get at,
Yeah.
yeah. Thank you.
yep, so we have both information in today's packet and Monday's packet. So to save a
I
few
guess I'll-
trees, let's bring this along.
Instead of 2 papers, I'll take all of it.
Yeah, got it.
All right, well then, what's the next item of it, Mr. Administrator?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we discussed at the beginning, making note of the open meeting law declaration at Rice Creek that came up at our workshop as a component or an item of interest. So yes, the district's resolution on open meeting law, the district itself has declared the emergency, and it is COVID-based. And the district may declare a position of an emergency regardless of the state's position. As you may know, COVID, I'll say, lingers. Staff, myself, continue to get updates from the state on the status actually across the nation, highlighting where it's expanding, et cetera. Long COVID is somewhat of an issue, and we're gaining a better understanding. All that to say that the district's declaration of an emergency seems to have a sound basis at this time. And so you could continue with it as is. And I don't know if there's questions there. I did chat with Lewis a little bit about it. So I'll leave it there.
There's nothing, no action to take place. Oh, Louis?
Mr. President, no, you do not need to take action. The one clarification I would make is we're not talking about the district declaring an emergency under the statute, but rather that pandemic conditions are such that the district believes that it's not reasonable or prudent to have all in-person meetings. So you have kind of a hybrid declaration that the administrators referred to. And I'm aware that other watershed districts continue to adopt a similar position, though most are certainly meeting in person.
Anyone else have a comment or? Manager Weiner?
I guess I don't quite understand the request. Are you requesting that we do declare emergency? No, that we just know we have the
Yeah.
authority to do it. Okay, yes.
He's saying we have the authority to have a hybrid meeting if there's
If we need
a
to,
situation
right.
calls for it.
All right.
Would that be a correct? All right. And Mr. Administrator,
Thank you. Manager Waller, board, now I want to affirm my position or the position that the district has declared a situation under which it believes it's important to offer the opportunity for hybrid meetings. certainly the public can always meet us virtually. Any of the managers, under the words of the declaration, may, if they believe it's pertinent or appropriate, to meet virtually. We assemble in person, but that opportunity is present for all of you.
So let me clarify
Manager
your
Bradley,
clarification.
Mr. President.
So as I have understood it, we currently have in place a policy that says if you come down with COVID, you may attend
Remote.
remotely. If, under the protocol, you should not be hugging your neighbor, then you can attend, because of COVID, you can attend remotely. And that is in place and all. Do you want us to verify that that's still in place?
No need.
I'm asking the administrator.
No, I do not.
Okay.
My intent was only to clarify with the entirety of the board.
Yeah, if I had COVID, I wouldn't be sitting here. So thank you.
Yep.
I would be remotely.
Mr. Chair, can I ask a question really briefly? So,
Manager Robertson, please.
thank you, Manager Waller. The hybrid option is only available if, in fact, it is related to COVID. Is that correct? It just seems a little, it seems a little extra to me, and I'll tell you why. You know, every time we go to the doctor, we sign like an 8-page HIPAA form that says, hey, it's no one's business. Whatever my medical condition is or isn't. I get with COVID, obviously we're aware of the people we're around, but it just seems silly that it's just that. Oh, and I'll give you an example. City of Blaine, we have the option to do hybrid meetings. I don't have to be ill. I could be traveling. I could be doing whatever, as long as it is advised to the city where I will be and the location and address of where I am at the time I'm zooming in, so I'm not violating open meeting laws, is published. I have the ability to participate electronically. And that is the case with, I don't know, I'm literally on like 6 or 7 other boards, and it's the case with basically all of them. It's not COVID specific. So I guess that's what I wanted to clarify. Is it specific to that? I mean, I could have pneumonia and I wouldn't want to zoom in, or be present, but I'd want to participate. So I guess I'm just curious why the mechanism has to be COVID. There's other reasons to not participate in person.
Mr. Chair, Manager
Mr.
Robert,
Attorney, please.
excellent point. The law currently provides for participating by interactive technology quite apart from the pandemic, so long as you, the district provides notice and you are in a publicly accessible location. That's the distinction. What we're, I think, earlier discussing is if, because of a COVID-related illness, you don't think it's reasonable or prudent to be in person. That is a separate basis under the open meeting law for remote participation that we have a declaration issued that addresses. So that is a different basis under the open meeting law.
Okay, so we're dialoguing two different things, and I understand that. I guess even, you know, through the orientation to this board, I was advised the only way that I could participate electronically officially was if I had COVID. And so I just wanted to make the distinction that I can, let's say I am on vacation, and I mean, this happened in October. I could have participated in a meeting, but I was out of town. I would have been happy to have zoomed in, but I was under the illusion that I could only participate electronically if I had COVID, which seemed silly to me.
Mr. Administrator, can you help us here?
Yeah, we opened a can of worms, and I apologize for that.
That's all right.
I apologize.
This has been a topic of discussion
Yes.
numerous times, and there are many individuals on this board that have an interest in, a similar interest that you're proposing, Manager
Okay.
Robertson. You're not the only one.
Hockey stuff.
Okay.
I can look right to my left here and see 2 of them right in front of me.
Three.
3.
Repeat offenders?
Well, no,
Great interest.
they want to
Got it.
participate in meetings when they're out of town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Nick.
Yes, Board of Managers, so both provide a basis for a manager to meet remotely, although the circumstance is slightly different. In the immediate one we're discussing about COVID, that's a legitimate reason And that is what the declaration is about. It's a declaration for COVID and that emergency, or pandemic, I should say. Specific, we noted COVID in that document. The other one is your personal lives, say travel for business, whatever you like. There, the managers may meet virtually and participate in the meeting, although the district has to notice appropriately where you are, that you're in a public space, et cetera, as a part of our noticing. That does require a time frame that we provide sufficient notice to the public.
One question,
Ma-
Mr. President?
Manager
can I just ask
Wagaman.
One question.
Yes.
Can they vote?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, they can vote too on that.
So if I may add on to all of this, so the purpose of the legislation was to eliminate the necessity of finding a public place and
Publishing,
doing all
publishing the
that.
notice of your
That
location.
was all. That's
No,
the
I
purpose of
understand that.
legislation.
Manager Robertson.
Again, just for clarification, I understand that what we're dialoguing, the overarching is the open meeting law, and being able to, I don't want to say violate it, but subvert it due to COVID. You don't have to publish your location. You can participate from home. I get that. I guess the reason I brought it up, since this is kind of the overarching, electronic
Yeah.
participation, is that I was advised and under the impression, maybe not, I'll rewind. I was under the impression that the only way that I could participate electronically in the full capacity as a manager was under that COVID guideline. And again, I have just a little bit of frustration because, like I said, I know I missed a meeting in October because I was at a conference out of town. I would have been happy to advise the district of my location and say, here I am, because I know the world is so very interested in ditch maintenance and water quality. I would have been happy to welcome a crowd to the lobby of whatever, location I was at. So I guess that I just wanted to make that clarification point, because that's what I was advised, like you wouldn't be eligible for the per diem and that you couldn't vote, that you could zoom in and watch but not participate, is what I was under the impression that that's how that worked. So
I wish I could clarify that.
yeah, me too.
Mr. Chair,
Madam, please go ahead.
the can is open.
And then we'll let Mr. Smith try to rescue us.
No, I
think
get
we're
it.
we're back to the point of COVID too, because if I wake up in the morning and I'm not feeling well and I don't know if it's COVID or not, my mind is sharp enough to be able to be part of the meeting as usual, but I'm not going to expose myself because I don't quite know. Is there any consideration for that? Because, we're back again to going, well, you need a doctor's note. Well, is that
I don't
elementary school?
I don't need a doctor's note.
Yeah. Mr. Chair?
Doctor's note, my gosh.
Yeah.
All right,
Well, that's what it said, didn't you?
Yep.
That's
Well,
what
let
it
me-
said.
let-
So you need to know.
All right, all right.
Yep, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Administrator, and then I want to hear from Mr. Smith.
All right. Mr. Smith can clear up anything I might get wrong, but here we go. So it does say this is the current declaration based on advice from a healthcare professional. I don't read that to say I need a note, but appreciate the comment. It would suggest it. What I would say is I think any doctor who said, you don't feel well, you came up with a fever, whatever the symptoms, if you believe it may be COVID and you called and said, I'm concerned about that, I think their guidance would be, you're right, it may be COVID, so act accordingly. In other words, the general guidance may supersede the need for a
All
note.
right, just be clear.
Yeah, Manager Robertson, Board, I apologize if we had a miscommunication about that earlier. You said October, I think. So obviously we have two different, and indeed the district has had a number of managers who participated virtually. Manager Hockey, yes, went to Florida, found a library, et cetera, and participated that way. But we did have to publish that her
Where are
whereabouts.
the rules?
Yeah. So thank you for that. And
Mr. Attorney, could you put a bow on this, please?
We killed it. We
I
killed
think
this
we're
issue
all
for
in,
sure.
Mr. Chair Manager, I think we're all on the same page now.
Thank you.
The only other historical footnote I would offer is that, and you'll hear at the annual conference, there are some boards that take the position that meetings should only be by people meeting in person. And this board, in fact, has a history
Of that,
of taking that position,
yes.
that if you can't be here, then you can't participate. But the board has evolved over time with changing conditions, and I think is now in a position where if someone is not able to be here in person, but can work with the staff to provide appropriate notice of being in a publicly accessible location, which would be in the notice, then that is another legitimate reason for remote participation.
Any more discussion on this item, members?
I think we got it.
All right. Then, Mr. Administrator, let's try to move on to the next item of business.
Ooh. Mr. Chair, we do have to put a little bit more of a bow on this. I do have to ask, did we vote? I know this was discussion on the items.
I think the second item was voted on. The first one was on assigning the delegates, but I don't think the second motion that was proposed in the packet was.
Yes, it
Well,
was.
yes,
Well,
we had.
Did we
a-
vote on
had a
it, though?
vote. It's 5-0.
Oh, we
Okay.
voted on the second one also?
Yes.
Yeah, on
Okay.
the resolutions, we had a motion, we have a second. I'll call for a vote
Perfect.
again.
John, I'm having so much fun, I can't keep it straight.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, if I could continue, I'll move it along if you like.
Well, just a minute, let's be clear. This is 5, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
On the resolutions, that's 5-0. Let's move on.
Yes.
All right. Thank you much for entertaining my thought there. Also on the platform, there are a number of other items which the board raised question about. And I've asked Matt to join us today in regards to those. Basically on page 196 of your packet is the legislative platform that MAUD intends to adopt. Yep. And within that, I did speak with Jan Voigt, Minnesota Watershed's executive director, concerning the platform and how these items are generalized in their document. At this time, they may not have further detail ahead of the specific discussions. And as we've typically seen, we've, as a district, proceeded with science and data to be the foundation of our actions. So on page 199 of the packet, at the very top of the page, you'll see a small letter D. In that was asked about, which is urban stormwater in duplication of standards. Staff has worked with our consultant, and at our most recent workshop, we did share that we do not see a duplication of those standards. Rather, the MS4 is a bare minimum. Every entity within Rice Creek is not subject to an MS4. The district's MS4 is specific and limited to its public drainage system, but we've taken the position to make our rules and recognize our ability to administer across the entirety of the watershed district. And so our rules are not a duplication, but an advancement specific to the goals that we're trying to achieve, and they work in conjunction with some other matters. I did ask Matt to come and speak specific to the water quality item. Bear with me, which is on page 200, number 1E, which is in regards to dredging. So, Mr. Chair, if you'd allow Matt to address that.
Yes, Mr. Chair, Board of Managers, just some brief notes here on dredging. There has been some discussion with the board over the recent years about dredging in sediment basins that the district has owned and operated, like the Long Lake Sediment Basin, the Lock Lake Sediment Basin. There's been other discussion about dredging in, I would say, nearshore channels to lakes, artificial constructed channels for recreation. So just wanted to add some additional information on what dredging is, what the purposes are. This particular item, support dredging as a best management practice to manage internal loading, is a specific look at what dredging can do. Dredging in lakes has been a long time practice, but there are multiple purposes for that practice. Deepening a water body for the purposes of improving recreation or transportation, toxic removal substance. Actually, there's a large dredging project that's going to be happening in Round Lake in the district that's being led by the Army as part of the ongoing Twin Cities Army ammunition plant cleanup. Dredging for macrophyte control or aquatic plants, and then of course nutrient control or internal loading. And I'll note that this item specifically mentions management of internal loading. I think that's good. A broader definition encompassing some of those other things that I said might not fit into a lot of what other watershed districts do. The other note that I would make here, and Nick and I were discussing this, is ensuring that there's strong technical justification for that action. Of course, the district always wants to have technical justification for doing any project. That's the same for dredging. So there needs to be evidence, scientific data to back up the idea that dredging will address the issue that it's working on and has the likelihood of achieving an outcome that all of the partners are seeking. So there's been instances where perhaps the issue has not been well defined in the past in different parts of the district, or all of the partners are not agreed upon what that outcome is. Nick, am I making sense along those lines there? Anything else to add on that?
Very much so.
Okay.
That addresses it.
Mike has a.
John?
John.
Oh, man, Mr. President.
So I'm the one who stumbled on this thing, and as I'm sitting here this morning, I'm stumbling again. And it supports dredging as a best management practice. It doesn't say the best management practice. Can there be multiple best management practices when you look at a problem?
I'm sorry, can there be multiple best management practices?
In other words, dredging and LM could both be best management practices.
Yes, yeah, sorry, Manager Bradley. Yes, you're absolutely right. Dredging is one of many available tools or practices that could be used to address internal loading.
Then I just solved my problem.
Correct.
Thank you.
No more questions, Mr. President?
Nope.
Manager Wagaman.
Just to comment on that, again, I see in here about the limited liability for the commercial salt applicators, and I still have a problem with that, but I don't think it's gonna get solved, but I'm not sure why they don't do their studies before they do that, and before they ruin a bunch of roads or whatever they're gonna do with no liability. In my opinion, if they need limited liability, they haven't done enough research. Just my opinion.
Manager Wagaman, as my experience of watching this at the legislature for a number of years, this is kind of a dead issue, even though, so we're supporting something that really isn't going to go anywhere, as we did with one of the resolutions. Right. It's just that's a huge change in laws for many people about the liability issue, and that's where it dies, is in the legislatures over that issue. So do we need to vote on this legislative platform?
Mr. Chair, may I make one additional comment before?
Yes, of
stepping
course.
down? Specific to, of course, it caught my eye on page 200, number 1D, supporting streamlining permit applications for rough fish management. They don't say carp there, but mainly I think that's what this is getting at. The comment I'd like to make to the board there is, I think, having worked on the district's carp management program, I'd be supportive of that item, but I would suggest that we don't focus on any specific permit application for rough fish management. I know in the past there has been other watershed districts out there that are using specific methods like electrofishing to remove adult carp, and they're seeking a streamlined process for that specific process. I would suggest that seeking a streamlined process across all of the available management options and all of the different programs going out there. So seeking a broad definition of that particular item.
Right above E. So
number 1D.
Under lakes there and water quality, it's item number E on page 200. Is that correct, Matt?
Yes, correct.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, Matt, striking rough fish?
Oh, no, I'm sorry, Manager Wine. For the delegates when attending the meeting to suggest that any of these efforts aren't focused on any one specific type of permit or type of action, but rather a broad focus on all of the different management actions out there. So I'm not suggesting any change to the verbiage
Okay.
here, but as it's being discussed in a larger group or the lobby issue is being advanced, to ensure that a broader view of that item is in mind.
So as I understand it, you're asking the delegates to make sure this isn't narrowed up.
Correct. Thank you, Manager
Okay,
Waller.
got it.
Yes.
Any other comments? I gotta get used to looking around the room here. We need to take an action to vote on supporting this or not?
Mr. Chair, I would say that's at the discretion of the board. Historically, you haven't. As I
Yes.
noted on page 150, there's a number of items that are action items that your delegates and potential alternative would vote on. Some very mundane, right, with the agenda itself, the minutes, et cetera. This is one of the action items for the legislative platform. It seems as though we've had a good discussion about it, and knowing that it originates maybe from a specific concern, the ability to be specific is unwarranted when you're discussing at such a high level and you don't know how it may manifest itself in legislation or discussions with elected folks.
So I guess I summarize that by saying we have to put some faith and trust in our delegates.
Exactly.
And with that, we'll move on to the next item of action. There's no need to vote on this as far as I can see.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Board Managers, the next item up for consideration is our new item 2, which is the CAC member appointment for vacant Washington County position. I see Kendra is online, but I don't believe at this time our audience can hear us. So with that, I'm sure you've seen in the packet on page 142 the intended appointment of Richard Thompson from Forest Lake to represent on the CAC Citizen Advisory Committee for the Washington County position.
I'll make the motion to appoint Mr. Thompson to the CAC Washington County open position. Is there a second?
I would second that.
All right, and discussion.
I would note, I think this fills all the vacancies on the Citizens Advisory Committee.
That would be my understanding.
And Manager Waller, do you know this person or have you had chatting with him or?
I haven't yet,
Okay.
and I don't know him offhand.
Okay.
So, but I probably will chat with him, no doubt. I'll find him.
All right.
But we've had an open position there for some time, and I'm a person who thinks that if you have the volunteer, well then,
Yep.
let's take that person. You bet.
And I look forward to meeting them as I will be at the December CAC meeting.
All right, that takes care of item number 2. Oh, yes, I'm sorry, thank you.
Yep.
All in favor of saying aye?
Aye.
5-0, it passes. Thank you. The next item is number 3 on this is Ramsey County Ditch number 4.
Yes, we have Ashley Ritchie present to discuss that.
Morning, Board of Managers. Thank you, Administrator Tomczyk. On page 35, you have proposed resolution 2023-10. Excuse me. This is to accept the engineer's repair report and water management district charges. We discussed this at the workshop. The water management district is a 60-40 split, with about $141,000 being collected through the WMD charges and the rest allocated to the district via ad valorem. Let's see. With the acceptance of the resolution, you'd also be setting a public hearing for us to receive public comment on the repair report and WMD charges memo. That is proposed to be December 7th, 2023 at 6:30 in the Roseville City Hall Council chambers.
Madam Manager Wynant.
Mr. Chair, after having discussed this on Monday with the full board, I would move to offer Resolution 2023-10 and its adoption. And how much of that resolution would you like me to read? The order? Okay. The Board of Managers accepts, I move that the Board of Managers accept the engineer's technical memoranda for both the repair of RCD 4 and the allocation of charges for the cost of the repair. The recommended scope of repair and change allocations are subject to modification and final board approval after the public hearing. And that the Board of Managers direct its administrator to notice acceptance of the technical memoranda and to set and notice a final hearing on both the repair and charge allocations at which the board shall take public comments and consider an order directing construction of the repair and adoption of the change allocation to be held on December 7th, 2023 in the council chambers, Roseville City Hall, 2660 Civic Center Drive, Roseville, Minnesota at 6:30 p.m. And notice of the hearing shall be provided as required by statute and district policy.
Is there a second?
There's a second with a modest change. You refer to it as a change allocation as a charge allocation.
I'm sorry, charge,
Probably
no
didn't have your
glasses.
readers on. With that, I second it.
But in print, it says charge, correct?
Yes,
Mr.
yes.
President? Yeah. And Mr. Bradley seconds it. All in favor, say aye. Or any discussion first? Oh, I guess, pardon me. Anybody have any discussion? All in favor, then say aye.
There's a roll call.
Oh, that's right. Yes. Mr. Bradley, Manager
Yes.
Bradley.
Yes.
Robertson.
Aye.
Wagaman.
Aye.
Waller, aye. Wynett.
Aye.
Aye. You need a professional back here, you know. We'll move on to the fourth item on the agenda, Mr. Administrator.
Yes, the fourth item is Stormwater Management Grant. And that is an extension for the city of Fridley. We do have Will Roach from our office to lead you through that item.
Yeah, good morning, Board of Managers. So as Administrator Tomczyk noted, City of Fridley is requesting an extension for its 2021 Stormwater Management Grant Agreement for their University Service Road project. They are requesting a one-year extension on that. And then just as a brief refresher on the scope of work for that project, city was looking to remove approximately 1/4 acre of impervious to replace with vegetation, and then also convert a two-way roadway to one-way, and then also install an infiltration basin as part of that project. City's just had some delays in getting work started. That includes just due to a couple of factors, including some ongoing coordination efforts with MnDOT, release of additional grant funds, and then another unrelated project taking place in that same project corridor. Again, the city is requesting a one-year extension on the agreement. It's staff's recommendation to approve that and then amend the agreement to have a new expiration date of December 27th, 2024. And then to also delegate signature authority on that amendment to the district administrator.
Is there a motion for this?
I'll move it, but I do have a question once we get to the.
We'll have a discussion then, all right?
I'll second it.
Manager Robertson moves it.
Yes.
Manager Wynett seconds. And now for discussion, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I just have a quick question from an administrative perspective or even a policy perspective. Is there a policy established amongst the board regarding requests for extension on grants? And listen, I'm all for extending the grant. This seems like a legitimate hardship. The only reason I ask is that every time you say yes, you set some form of precedent. So you have to be able to, offer foundational rationale if the request comes again through another means or by another entity. So we don't have to get into the full thing now. I'm happy to extend it. We ran into this trouble on the Met Council when we started saying yes to extensions without really, other than just wanting to be nice, when there's other communities or other projects that may need that funding. So I might suggest maybe as we get into first quarter of next year, if there is not already a policy established for grants as far as extensions on those awarded dollars, that we might consider reviewing that. Just so that we do have something laid out that would obviously include rationale for hardships or what have you. But if like it was something, we had an issue with the Met Council where a project was stalled till like 2028. Well, I'm not going to keep giving you year extensions when your project's not ready to go. So just having something laid out that gives us, you know, consistent authority to extend said grant.
Any comment, other comment? Mr. Administrator, you always have a word.
Mr. Chair, thank you. Just intending a point of information or clarity. No, the district doesn't have a formal policy in regards to that. It has been a case-by-case basis based on the rationale that the party provides to us. Here, I believe it is a 1 year. But I'll note we did have one that came back multiple times. What I'll note from a budgetary standpoint is these are recognized as committed dollars in the district's budget. So we hold them we retain them for that specific purpose. But you make a valid point of what if there's another need that is now of greater priority. So.
Thank you. Any other comments? All right, in that case, I'll call for the vote, please. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
5-0.
Thank you.
Mr. Administrator, number 5, the Washington County Conservation District Contract Inspection Services.
Yes, Mr. Chair, you are correct, and we do have Terrence Chaston Davis here to lead us through that item.
Morning, Terrence.
Board managers. Before you today, you will find the memo on page 128 of your packet. We are looking to extend our inspection service agreement with Washington Conservation District. We've been running an agreement with them since, well, we extended it once, and that extension ran from February to December 31st of this year. We are looking to extend an agreement. We are very pleased with the services from Washington Conservation District. We find a need to extend the agreement just based off of kind of forecast of the coming year, and we want to align that agreement with the one that we have with Ramsey Soil and Water Conservation Division. That agreement also is set to expire in December of 2024, so we want to align those two agreements. I'll also note that the Washington Conservation Inspection Services to date has been well under the capped hours and not to exceed limit of 40,500.
Is that it, T?
That is it.
Well, then I'll make the move authorizing the administrator to amend the Washington County Conservation District Inspection Services Agreement for a term extension through December 31st, 2023 to December 31st, 2024 with aggregate spending authority not to exceed $40,500.
I'll second that.
Manager Wynett seconds. Is there any discussion? Silence.
Good.
Okay, we'll have a vote, please. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0.
Thank you.
Mr. Administrator, how about we need to go to the treasurer for the checklist, wouldn't you say so? Is that correct?
That would be fine.
Madam Treasurer.
Do we want to do that one first? Let's see.
Yes. Mr. Chair, and for clarity, there are two items. One is a resolution on page 205 of your packet, which is authorization for payment of the November 2023 check register. That's because you only have one meeting in November outside of your workshop. And the intent here is to authorize your treasurer to approve those for payment. Keep the lights on and work moving along. So page 205, there is a resolution.
You want to move the resolution, Madam Treasurer?
I think in the past, the other treasurer always asks someone else to do it because of authorizing her. So
Oh, all right.
I would move resolution 2023-11, authorizing payment of November 2023 check register, allowing the Board of Managers, authorizing district treasurer to review and approve payment of the November 2023 check register in amount not to exceed $400,000 for operating expenses and $150,000 surety returns.
Is there a second?
Second.
Manager Wagaman. All in favor?
This is a.
Oh, we'll have a roll call, yes. Okay, sorry, it's in front of me and I should read it, eh? President Bradley.
Yes.
Manager Robertson.
Aye.
Manager Wagaman.
Aye.
Manager Waller, aye. Manager Wynant.
Aye.
It passes 5-0.
I would just note that we'll see this again in December because of the same issue.
Yes. Now, Manager, Mr. Administrator, the check register, correct?
Correct.
So again,
Yes.
Treasurer Wynant.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the check register dated November 8th, 2023, in the amount of $121,615.67, prepared by Redpath and Company.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion by, and a second, and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 5-0.
Again, Mr. Chair, I would note that we're having a quarterly treasurers meeting on December 6th. December 6th.
All right, very good.
Keep you updated.
Now, items for discussion and information. Mr. Engineer, you're first up on that one. Do you have anything you want to add to today's meeting?
Sure, Mr. Chair. I'll just note the progress on a couple of the construction projects here. ACD 5362, the work has been now completed, the final punch list items. So next month you should be seeing project closeout, final payment, and I could probably even give a brief presentation at that time. JD3, branches 1, 2, and 4, we're continuing the work on that project. The contractor last week started doing excavation of the ditch. They had been clearing trees for a while, and now they're starting to move on the excavation part. So it's good to see continued progress on that, although they're working in some of the drier areas of the ditch. They're anticipating that they may need firmer frozen conditions to get to some of the wetter areas of the ditch. So we'll see how that progress continues.
Thank you. Anything else we want to look at? You have something, Mr. Administrator? Or before we move on to the calendar? Nope. All right. So I would note first on the calendar that this afternoon we have the partners meeting over at New Brighton. So that we all are aware of that. Thank you, Teresa, for reminding me.
Yeah, thank you for owning the New Brighton. I'd forgotten.
Yes, anyways, are there any other items on the calendar, Mr. Administrator, to change or note, or?
Mr. Chair, just notes the absence of a second meeting in November as well as December. And certainly our December meeting on the 13th is here in the City Hall chambers, but it is an evening meeting for our truth and taxation.
Thank you. And that leads us to the
That's our next meeting.
Our next item, which will be administrator updates.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I would defer to Attorney Lewis Smith here for a short update, and then I do have a number of items.
Mr. Chair, managers, I just wanted to also share that the Minnesota Watersheds and the Red River Watershed Management Board have asked us to assist in going through an old list of housekeeping changes to the Watershed Act, just to bring it up to date and deal with some kind of long-standing ambiguities that need clarification. One of the major changes is not something that affects metro watershed districts like Rice Creek, but for non-metro, their project ordering procedure is, their statutes are quite confusing and outdated. I'm working with Mr. Kolb in that regard on those. But I just wanted you to be aware we'll be reporting at the annual meeting about that, and we'll have more to share along the way. But
And by us, sir, you mean Smith Partners? When you
Yes.
say you have been
Yes,
requested.
we,
So-
yes.
So Ricky Noonan and Smith Partners are the two law firms that have been asked to review these look together, or somewhat to work together. Smith Partners being the primary.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Now for the rest of the updates, Mr. Administrator.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Board of Managers, make note that I attended the Washington County board meeting that included what I affectionately call the Watershed Roundup. Rice Creek, myself, Manager Bradley, and Manager Waller were both present. I thought it went well and well received by the Washington County Board. I'll leave any further comment to the two managers. I'll make note that outside of our December workshop, we have a typical holiday gathering. Manager Bradley has been kind enough to buy us some pizza. So we'll have our morning workshop on December 11th, and then we'll have a little pizza before you depart. So thank you, Manager Bradley. I'll note that Minnesota Watershed's annual dues for 2024 are needed to be paid. That's $12,500. And I'm proceeding to pay that, engaging Manager Bradley on that. You made note of the city-county partner meeting today, which is great. Unfortunately, I'll have to say I'm not feeling terribly well. Whatever's going around, it's coming on strong for me.
My best.
So,
Sounds like a remote.
yeah, or I'm going home and going to bed. Yeah.
That's even better. I'm glad to hear that.
But I'm sure staff will do a good job of sharing the good work of the district and engage our partners in conversation. So I'll leave it there.
Well, that leads us to managers' updates. So I'll begin with Manager Robertson. Do you have an update, miss?
I don't have an update. I am not as exciting as y'all, but I do have a really quick question, if I may
Please.
ask. The calendar that we have with November and December dates, do we need to include December 7th, which is the public hearing for the watershed project that we just moved in Roseville?
I didn't put it in there because it hadn't.
Right, pending? Okay.
Just today.
Okay, perfect.
Send an update. I'm gonna send a Zoom or an invite.
Yeah.
To everybody.
Excellent. I just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
You bet.
Manager Wagaman.
I have nothing.
Manager Wynett.
No.
Mr. President?
So I just want to say that, I've gone for a number of years to the Washington County, and I think it's a great thing they do. I wish all counties did that. We've tried to suggest it to Ramsey County, and they kind of look at us like we've got enough to do. Thank you. One of the things my big takeaway was that they were very supportive of all of the districts. They're supportive of their projects, their efforts, their budgets, and their tax increases. And by the way, our tax increase of 6.2% kind of fell in the middle. The taxes ranged as high as, this is kind of interesting, 26% for Browns Valley. Obviously, they don't have our policy of putting money away in advance of projects, so when the big project came in, they suddenly needed a bunch of money. So I endorse what we do. Then there was a 10.7, a 6.5, and then we came in at 6.2, and there was a 6 and a 3.9, a flat, and a 2.8. So we were right in the middle. And there were no questions or concerns about any of that. Very informative.
Mr. President, you should note that our budget was the same as what it was last year, flat, even though the rate changes somewhat, but the actual money.
Yeah, it was 0.1, so yeah, our budget was
pretty
flat.
So I did attend the Washington County meeting. I also was there. I was sat next to President Bradley, and when I heard both of us had a similar reaction to the comments by the Forest Lake Administrator taking credit for the street sweeping. So I couldn't resist, and I had to go up and stick up for us, since we're the ones who started it. And a lot of people don't understand that came out of here. It was many years ago. New Brighton asked for it, And Mastel and I thought that was a good idea, and we're told we didn't know what we were talking about. And but since then, somebody wrote a study about sweeping, and it's worked. And one of the things that's happened with the study, which I forgot yesterday, I should have mentioned, is that we've had New Brighton Moundsview come along at our last meeting with the partners and talk about how they've improved the proficiency of this street sweeping by making a new device to go in front of their skid loader to pick up the bulk and to let the street sweeper actually pick up the dust and particles in smaller pieces. And that way they weren't emptying the street sweeper so often, and it went faster and was more efficient. And those are the kinds of things that you get from these citizen partners meetings. We wouldn't get that otherwise. These are a couple of guys who came from the maintenance department to talk about this. And so it's really important. Another suggestion that came out of our citizens partners meetings, I should say, it was the idea of maybe we should start planning where to plant trees a little more carefully than right next to the boulevard. Because the Dutch elm is taken away and we put in the ash to replace them, and now 50 years later the ash is going away, and so maybe more carefulness. I attended the Washington County Consortium meeting along with Matt Koshin and Catherine Nestor, and they had a long talk about different programs that are going on. The Legislative Committee on Water will be on the 14th of this month at 9 a.m. down at the State Capitol in room 120, and they'll be talking about the White Bear Lake situation. Earlier last week, the cities that are involved in the White Bear Lakes have made their appearance before the administrative law judge. And what I did not attend it, but what I've heard from people that did, I am interested in reading the transcript. Because the basis by which this law decision was made by the engineering doesn't sound like it was too sound, from what I heard in the cross-examination, particularly on the Hugo side. So we'll look forward to seeing some of that. Let's see. We had our meeting a week ago or so with Commissioners Muron and Kowalski. They gave us some notification about some upcoming items. They also encouraged us, if we had any legislation, to submit it to them. And yesterday, that's one of the items I asked the board to do also. And we'll, although I didn't have it with me, we'll send it to them, and the administrator will ask if we had any sponsors for it yet. So I don't know that we have at this moment. We haven't started doing, but that's not a hard thing to do soon. So, anyways, that's done there. Yesterday at the meeting, I had a long discussion with Jay Riggs. He's the administrator for the Washington County Conservation District. We just hired him again, his crew. By the way, they had wonderful comments about Rice Creek's staff. I'm always a little suspicious because we hadn't voted on the money yet, you know. But that's my nature, anyways. But one of the things Riggs told me was that the federal government has authorized a lot of money to be building stormwater ponds, or what he calls wildlife ponds, in wetland areas. And there's conditions, and he says it's doable under the Wetland Conservation Act that the state has, although I don't know how. We'll have to look into it. But he said there's a lot of money coming in, and it's basically the climate change, and they wanted to make sure there was more retention of water. And so by building a pond, it's 8.5 feet deep at the maximum, you can have a greater capacity there. I questioned that about whether you could do that or not. I mean, I realize it can be done in 1 and 2 wetland areas, but he says, well, you'd have to remove the soils. And the expense of removing the soils out of the wetland or even out of a tree, that's something that's not practicable for our area, because this is not we don't really have commercial agriculture to the extent large enough where people would own machines like that any longer. But nevertheless, it's something to look at, and something that maybe would be incorporated with our plans like we do with Lionel Lakes or Forest Lake or Hugo, or I anticipate seeing a plan to come after Monday's discussions with our friends in Columbus. Hopefully, we'll do something here. Let me see if there's anything else I want to confess today here.
Oh my gosh.
That's gotta be it.
Yeah,
I
that's
think
gotta be
that's,
it, sir.
I
You're
think
only
that's
one
about
person.
it, yeah. And seeing that it's time to go, if the administrator has something else.
Mr. Chair, I don't know if you skipped over Manager Winan. Did you have updates?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
She said no.
Oh, oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I went all the way down the line.
I'm congested.
You're really,
My hearing's
I'm
going.
easily confused and you're doing it. So, any other items from Patrick? You have anything? Mr. Attorney? Mr. Engineer? Mr. Administrator?
Oh, you bet. I'll make it real fast. Ramsey County Ditch 2, 3, and 5, I believe, was referenced there. I do keep in contact with our elected officials, just keep us front-facing there with them. We did that resiliency grant. That is the retention of water on the landscape. We identified those critical areas. Whether we excavate or not, maybe we adjust the outlet. So there are perhaps other means in berming to get that done. For grant dollars for RCD 2, 3, and 5, Met Council is coming out with some grants. Hopefully our first resiliency grant is seen as foundational. I believe it would be in allowing us to move forward, get grant dollars there. So it's a moving landscape. What's more likely to be successful is hard to say, but we keep trying to juggle all of those. And I do have a meeting with MnDOT regarding that project with Mr. Otterness. And then the city of Columbus, we did do a study for stormwater management on an Oak County ditch. Is it 15 and 15,
well,
right.
That's the industrial park.
Yeah, we
That's
completed.
15 and 4.
Yes. So while we can complete a study, it is up to that municipality to decide if they want to use that information and move forward. In that particular case, not passing any judgment, if you will, they declined to look at regional ponding and that sort of thing. But we've extended to City of Columbus that we could study again.
Yes, you did it at the workshop, and that's fine. And now, final one, Miss Teresa, you have anything you want to do here before we ask for the end of the meeting?
I want to wish every veteran a happy Veterans Day.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yes,
Good idea.
yes, very good, very good, very good. So, yes, we have Veterans Day coming up, and we don't want to forget that. Do we have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
So moved.
Second?
I have a motion and second, and Mr. President, we all vote. Anyone? Aye?
Aye.
Aye. Let's go home. 10:15.
The recording has stopped.